Kim Suko is a math teacher who is as reserved as he is brilliant. He was a prodigy as a child, but now he teaches at an ordinary high school. He lives alone in a tiny apartment surrounded by books, notebooks filled with equations, and a chalk-stained chalkboard. His world is made of problems that can be solved with logic, which is why he finds it easier to lose himself in numbers than to connect with people. In the classroom, Sukago speaks softly, almost as if apologizing for being demanding. He explains theorems flawlessly but avoids jokes or small talk in the hallways. When class ends, he disappears among the students like just another shadow. It's not that anyone hates him, it's simply that nobody sees him, and he's grown used to that, to being a ghost. The only thing that breaks that solitude is a small ritual. Every day at lunchtime, he walks to a local cafe where he's served by Wasan, his neighbor. She is a woman with weathered hands, a tired smile, and an observant gaze, serving simple dishes and cheap coffee to get by. Suko always orders the same thing, sits at the same table, and watches her out of the corner of his eye while pretending to read. To her, he's just another customer. To him, those 30 minutes are the only moment of the day when he feels his life could be something more than numbers. Wasan's life is also an exhausting loop. She gets up before dawn, gets her niece Yuna ready for school, and opens her business. She's always in a rush with something left to do, yet she tries to keep a smile on her face. Kim Suko is a math teacher who is as reserved as he is brilliant. Yuna is sick and needs constant treatment. Even a slight fever is frightening. Amidst this routine, Suko and Wasan cross paths every day, on the apartment stairs, at the cafe door, and even at night, when she hears the footsteps of her neighbor returning to the unit next door. They smile shyly at each other and exchange brief, polite remarks, but nothing more. They seem to live in parallel universes, and yet, without realizing it, they are already a silent part of each other's lives. Until one day, that normalcy is shattered in the most brutal way. It's night, it's raining, and Suko is in his apartment solving problems in a notebook when he hears a crash next door. First, pounding on Wasan's door, then the thick voice of a drunk man, her ex-husband, an abuser who had hurt her before and has now returned to demand money and control. The noise escalates. There are insults, objects falling, and Yuna's muffled crying. Suko freezes, his pencil suspended in mid-air as the sounds of heavy thuds and pleas come through the wall. He knows he should call the police, but he doesn't. Instead, he moves closer to the wall, as if his silent presence could somehow change what's happening on the other side. And here's where it gets grave. The blows stop abruptly. In their place, a thick silence follows, then a dull thud against the floor. Terrified, Wasan decides to defend herself with the only thing she has within reach. In a desperate struggle, she strangles her ex-husband with an iron cord. When it is all over, she is trembling, her face covered in bruises and her hands stained. Yuna is crying in a corner. No one else knows. No one, except for Suko, who on the other side of the wall, has just heard, second by second, how his entire life was split in two. And that is why, instead of dialing emergency services, Sukigo makes a decision that changes everything. He leaves his apartment, crosses the hallway, and knocks on Wasan's door. When she opens it, she finds him there, pale but steady. He sees the body on the floor. He sees Wasun shaking, and he sees Yuna hiding in a corner. He does not judge her or ask for details. He tells her to change her clothes, wash off the blood, take the girl to his apartment, and not to open the door for anyone. Suko listens, observes, and as if facing an impossible problem on the chalkboard, begins to map out the solution in his head. He rolls up his sleeves and starts cleaning the scene, moving the body, thinking about fingerprints, schedules, and alibis. He is not thinking about right or wrong. He is thinking about the fact that, for the first time, something in his life is pulsing with intensity. In the following days, Suko turns what happened in the apartment next door into a large-scale problem. Kim Suko is a math teacher who is as reserved as he is brilliant. It's about constructing an alternative story so solid that no one will ever look at Wasun as a suspect, and above all, so that Yuna can keep living like a normal child without the police showing up at her door. To do this, Suko fabricates a false narrative, suggesting a trip to the movies to leave clear evidence that they couldn't have been at the crime scene. He checks the local theaters, showtimes, the most crowded screenings, and the locations of the cameras, ensuring there are clear records of them being at the theater during that time, far away from the scene of the crime. If the police reconstruct that night, they will find an almost innocent family outing at the movies, when in reality, that trip is the evidence he needs so that no one looks for the body they left behind. But the plan has a massive hole. If Wasan's ex's band simply disappears, sooner or later someone will ask where he is. Sukigo understands that to close the equation, he must offer the world the wrong body. So, he seeks out someone whom no one will claim. A homeless man, invisible to the city. One of those people others avoid on the sidewalk without even looking at them. He approaches him with kindness, offering food, conversation, something that sounds like help. And when he has him close enough, he crosses a line from which there is no turning back. He turns him into the perfect victim to cover for another. The body that later appears on a riverbank is not Wasan's ex-husband, but everything is set up to make it look like it is. The clothes, the items, the marks. Suko destroys fingerprints, alters details, and ensures the identification is confusing. It is the darkest step of his entire plan, and also the most logical within his mind. If he has to sacrifice a third person to save two others, he does it without hesitation. In his head, the math adds up. Among all the files of the day, that case ends up in the hands of Joe Minbum, a stubborn, intuitive detective with a shared past with Tsukugo. In school, he was the average kid who glanced sideways at the class genius, the boy capable of solving impossible problems without breaking a sweat. Now, years later, Minbum is the one with the badge, the gun, and the authority to interrogate that same genius, who faded into a gray life. When Minbum learns that the neighbor of the primary suspect is Kim Suko, something clicks. Suddenly, this case is no longer just another file. It's an opportunity to see if that silent former classmate with all the right answers is capable of using his intelligence for something much darker. He starts with the basics, reviewing the alleged death of Wasun's ex-husband, the body's route, the objects found, and the history of prior violence. Then he looks at the alibi, Wasun and Yuna at the movies. The tickets, the security cameras, everything seems to line up too well. And it's exactly that perfection that smells wrong. The investigation also turns into a duel of egos. Minbum doesn't just want to solve a crime. He wants to prove he can read the genius who always used to leave him behind. And Suko, on the other side, wants to prove he can construct a plan so perfect that not even someone who has known him since childhood can tear it down. Minbum returns to the neighborhood again and again, talking to neighbors. He watches how Suko behaves at the high school, how he walks, and how he responds to seemingly innocent questions. He invites him for a drink, reminisces about school anecdotes, and asks about his current life. Suko answers with short, polite phrases, but they are always measured to the millimeter. With each visit, Minbum accumulates small cracks, a detail that doesn't fit the timeline, an attitude that is too controlled, an alibi so perfect it seems rehearsed. He also discovers that the recovered body doesn't quite match the profile of Wasun's ex-husband. There are discrepancies at the hospital, witnesses who saw someone else at the scene, and clues suggesting that someone tampered with the evidence. When the detective finds the trail of a homeless man who went missing around the same dates, the picture is finally complete. Someone took that person, erased him from the map, and used them to construct a fake resolution to the case. And all arrows, sooner or later, point back to the same spot in the building, Suko's apartment. In a key moment, Minbum stops playing the nice cop and confronts Suko directly. He points out the inconsistencies, tells him about the homeless man, and exposes the points where the official story doesn't hold up without his intervention. The conversation is part interrogation, part confession. Minbum tells him, in so many words, only you could do something like this. Only someone like you could plan a crime so orderly, so clean, and so cruel. Suko, who until then had handled every answer with surgical precision, begins to crack from within. It's not because he fears prison, but because he realizes that, deep down, Minbum understands him better than anyone else. The detective also lays out what Wasan and Yuna don't know, that their salvation was built on the death of someone completely unrelated to the conflict. He makes it clear that, while the law may take its time, the truth is already there, breathing between the two of them. This moment acts almost like a mirror. Minbum recognizes Suko's brilliance, but he also shows him the monstrosity of what he did with it. It's the first time anyone has truly seen him in full, as a genius, as a man in love, and as a criminal. Suko could keep denying everything, look for a procedural error, or hide behind the few remaining gaps in the evidence. He could let the suspicion linger without ever reaching a firm conviction, but he doesn't. Instead, he makes the decision most consistent with his extreme understanding of love. He confesses. He admits to helping cover up the death of Wasan's ex-husband and to killing the homeless man too. Use him as a substitute at the scene. He accepts full blame so that they can remain legally safe, so that Wasan isn't a murderer in the eyes of the world, but the woman who survived a monster thanks to a silent neighbor willing to destroy himself for her. There are no grand speeches, no exaggerated tears. It is a quiet, almost mathematical surrender. He knows what happens if he pleads guilty. He knows how much time he could lose, and he knows his normal life is over. But he also knows that if he doesn't do it, everything he did for Wasan becomes a house of cards built on a lie. From that confession on, their positions change forever. Wasan and Yuna avoid prison, but they cannot avoid the guilt. They go on with their lives, yes, but with the awareness that there were 2 deaths along the way. The man who beat her and the innocent man Supko sacrificed so they could keep moving forward. Every time Wasun opens the cafe door, or every time she hears a footstep in the hallway, she remembers the neighbor who, without saying much at all, chose to drown for them. Sukugo, on the other hand, stops being invisible. In prison, he's no longer just the weird teacher. He is the protagonist of a case discussed by the press, the police, and everyone who hears the story. For the first time, the world is looking at him, just as he can no longer move freely. That belated visibility is a cruel irony that goes underscored without being said aloud. Minbum is left with a bitter victory. He manages to solve the case and bring the culprit to justice. But the lingering taste isn't one of triumph. Instead, it feels like mourning. He lost the only friend he truly admired deep down, and he understands that while he stopped Suko's intelligence from crossing more lines, he was too late to save him from himself. The question that remains isn't just, how far would you go to protect someone you love? He starts with the basics, but also, how many lives are you willing to break to give your own life meaning? That ambiguity is what makes the story keep spinning in your head long after the movie ends. If you want to check out another similar story, make sure to visit my channel. I'll be uploading new videos every week. Thank you all so much for watching and for leaving your likes and comments.
In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.